He wasn't just stepping into the ring, he was stepping into history. On a fateful night in Cuba, August 2nd, 1958, a young José Nápoles made his professional debut. The bell rang, and within minutes, Julio Rojas was flat on the canvas. A knockout in the very first round. That was the night the world got its first glimpse of the man who would soon be known as Mantequilla. For a while, Cuba became his proving ground. 21 fights, mostly against names that didn't echo far beyond the island. Yet, in those matches, Nápoles showed flashes of brilliance. Then came 1961. After dispatching Enrique Carabio, fate threw a cruel hook. Fidel Castro banned professional boxing in Cuba. In one stroke, Nápoles' dreams were cornered. His career was on the ropes, not because of an opponent, but because of politics. But fighters like him don't quit. Nápoles slipped away to Mexico, searching for survival and another chance. He didn't just find it, he owned it. On July 21st, 1962, he blasted Enrique Camarena out in 2 rounds. He fought 4 times that year. He won all 4. Mexico became the place where his fists could breathe again. 1963 tested him harder. 7 victories, but also 2 painful losses to Tony Perez and Alfredo Urbina. Yet, even in setbacks, he carved his path forward. In Venezuela, he flattened J.C. Morgan in 7. Then came 1964, a turning point. Nápoles boarded a plane to Japan, and in just 1 round, Takeru Yoshimoto was gone. Back in Venezuela, he silenced the dangerous Carlos Murico Hernandez, knocking out a future world champion in round 7. By then, one truth was clear. Nápoles wasn't just fighting opponents. He was fighting destiny and winning. By 1965, José Nápoles was sharpening his craft with every punch. He strung together 3 more victories that year, including another triumph over J.C. Morgan. But this time, the level of competition began to climb. He was matched against Eddie Perkins, former world junior welterweight champion. 10 hard rounds later, the judge's decision was clear. Nápoles had his hand raised. Next came Adolphe Pruitt, a man who would one day challenge him for a world title. Nápoles didn't wait around. He ended the fight in the 3rd round, a knockout that sent a message. He was ready for anyone. 1966 was no different. 5 more wins, all by knockout. But there was one bitter night. His old rival, J.C. Morgan, returned the favor, stopping Nápoles in the 4th round. That loss stung. Yet, instead of breaking him, it transformed him. That defeat would be the last one he suffered for the next 4 years. What followed was nothing short of remarkable. 20 straight victories, 13 of them before he ever touched a world title. Along the way, he avenged Morgan, flattening him in just 2 rounds. And as the wins piled up, so did his following. Fans in Southern California couldn't get enough of the smooth, deadly Cuban Mexican. Then came the moment that would change everything. February 15th, 1969, after defeating Fate Davis in Mexico, Nápoles finally earned a shot. The opponent, Curtis Cokes, the reigning world welterweight champion. April 18th, Inglewood, California. The arena crackled with energy. Round after round, Nápoles broke Cokes down. And in the 13th, it was over. Nápoles scored the knockout. He was now the world welterweight champion. True to tradition, he celebrated with a wide grin, wearing a sombrero in the ring, a symbol of his adopted home. But he wasn't done. Just 2 months later, June 29th, he faced Cokes again, this time in Mexico City. Once more, Nápoles dominated, knocking him out in round 10. And in October, he sealed his reign by defeating the great Emil Griffith. 15 rounds, outpointed, and beaten. The crown stayed with Nápoles. He was no longer just a fighter. He was a champion, and the world was starting to realize that José Mantequilla Nápoles was something truly special. The new decade opened with fire. On February 14th, 1970, José Nápoles defended his crown against Ernie Indian Red Lopez. The fight went the distance, 15 brutal rounds, and in front of none other than Sugar Ray Robinson himself. Nápoles closed the show with a knockout. The crowd roared. The legend was growing. But boxing is never a straight road. After 2 stay-busy wins, disaster struck. December 3rd, 1970, Syracuse, New York. Across the ring stood Billy Backus, the nephew of former champion Carmen Basilio. Nápoles was expected to dominate. Instead, a cut ended his night in just 4 rounds. The upset was complete. The world welterweight title was gone. Nápoles didn't sulk. He regrouped, fought once more, and then chased the rematch. This time, the stage was Los Angeles. Under the lights, Nápoles was ruthless. By the 8th round, Backus was broken, and the belt returned to its rightful owner. The welterweight throne was his once again. After 3 non-title victories, including one over Jean Jocelyn, he returned to the big stage. December 14th, 1971, he met Hedgemon Lewis. 15 rounds later, the judges gave it to Nápoles. But behind the victories, whispers began. Training camp stories leaked. Nápoles showing up smelling of alcohol, his discipline slipping. The champion's lifestyle was beginning to take its toll. Yet in 1972, he showed flashes of brilliance. In England, he stopped Ralph Charles in 7. Soon after, an old rival resurfaced, Adolph Pruitt. But Nápoles was merciless. In just 2 rounds, Pruitt was gone. The belt was safe. By 1973, Nápoles was a world traveler with fists of iron. He beat Lopez once more, this time with a 7th round knockout. Then he flew to Grenoble, France, where he outpointed Roger Menetry over 15 grueling rounds. And in Toronto, Canada, he handled Clyde Gray the same way. Another 15-round decision, another successful defense. Everywhere he went, the story was the same. Different country, different challenger, but the champion remained José Nápoles. By the mid-70s, whispers grew louder. Fans wanted to see José Nápoles against the man many considered untouchable, the world middleweight champion, Carlos Monzon. The match was signed February 9th, 1974, under a circus tent in Puteaux, Paris. It was a spectacle, but the jump in weight was unforgiving. Nápoles fought bravely, but the size, the strength, the relentless pace of Monzon wore him down. In the 7th round, battered and outmatched, Nápoles didn't come out to continue. His lone venture into middleweight ended in defeat, a technical knockout. He returned to his throne at welterweight, refusing to let that loss define him. Before 1974 was over, he knocked out Hedgemon Lewis in 9 and Horacio Saldano in just 3. The belt was still his. Then came 1975. Twice he defended against Armando Muniz. The first, in Acapulco, ended in controversy, a technical decision after 12 rounds. Fans demanded clarity. They met again in Los Angeles, and this time, Nápoles left no doubt, earning a clear decision victory. But every champion's reign has its final night. December 6th, 1975, Mexico City. Across the ring stood Britain's John H. Stracey. In the very first round, Nápoles dropped him. The crowd erupted, but Stracey rose, regrouped, and slowly turned the tide. By the 6th round, Nápoles was exhausted, beaten, and stopped by technical knockout. The title was gone. The great José Nápoles made his decision. No comebacks, no false promises. He retired from boxing, for good. His record stood as a testament to his brilliance. 81 wins, 7 losses, with 54 victories coming by knockout. An elite club of power punchers. But more than numbers, his legacy was in his style. Smooth as butter, sharp as a razor. A Cuban heart with a Mexican soul. José Mantequilla Nápoles, one of the greatest welterweights the world has ever known. That, outside the ring, José Nápoles lived a life rooted in family. He was the son of Pedro Nápoles, a schoolteacher, and his wife Rosa. He grew up alongside his brother, Pedro Jr., and later became the father of 9 children. In his later years, he settled in Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua, Mexico, with his wife, Bertha, a quiet home for a man who had once lived in the roar of arenas. But Nápoles wasn't just a boxer, a champion inside the ropes, and now a figure in pop culture. His presence stretched far beyond boxing. Time, however, has no opponent it cannot defeat. After a long illness, José Mantequilla Nápoles passed away on August 16, 2019, in Mexico City. He was 79 years old, yet his legacy had already been cemented. In 1985, he He was enshrined in the Ring magazine's Hall of Fame, and by 1990, his name joined the immortals in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. A teacher's son from Cuba, who fled political barriers, found glory in Mexico, and carved his name among the greatest welterweights who ever lived. Smooth as silk, deadly as steel. That was José Mantequilla Nápoles. And so, the journey of José Mantequilla Nápoles came full circle. From the streets of Cuba, to the bright lights of Mexico, to the world stage where his fists wrote history. He fought, he fell, he rose, and he conquered. His style was smooth, his heart unshakable, his legacy eternal. Champions may retire, legends may pass, but names like Nápoles never fade. They live on, in the echoes of the crowd, in the grainy footage of old fights, and in the stories told across generations. José Nápoles wasn't just a boxer. He was an artist in gloves, a man who turned struggle into greatness. And though the final bell has long since rung, his name will always remain among the greatest to ever step through the ropes.